just cannot get to sleep. If this sounds like you, well, watch on, because in today's episode of Dr. Nora, I take you through how to get that perfect night's sleep. As a general practitioner, often people come to me and say, "Doctor, I just simply cannot go to sleep." Now, this could be that they cannot fall asleep initially because they're thinking too much, or perhaps they're able to nod off to sleep, but they keep waking up every hour, every 2 hours, making them feel really unrefreshed and groggy in the morning. I can't fall asleep. But why do we need to sleep? Why is it so important to us? Well, when we fall asleep, we know that lots of important bodily functions take place. For example, our immune system is working really hard to repair and regenerate all of our cells. Our brain is producing lots of new pathways to help us learn things from the day before. And it's super important for our heart's health and also for our metabolism to get a good night's sleep. So it's no wonder that when you don't get a full night's sleep, you often go to your doctor seeking for help. But before we can get to that perfect night's sleep, we need to understand what actually controls our sleep. Our sleep is controlled by two main interacting systems, the first of which is called the homeostatic sleep drive process. Now, this is a process that determines how long we've been awake for, and so makes us feel sleepy as the night goes on. And conversely, it has a look at how long we've been asleep for, and so it makes us feel alert when it's time to wake up. The second system is our circadian rhythm, or our internal body clock. This controls sleep through our temperature regulation and also through certain hormones as well. This one usually coincides with the light of the day and the dark of the night, and so hence we usually fall asleep at night time and wake up in the morning. Someone turn off the lights! Okay, Dr. Nora, so you've told us that there are two interacting systems that help us to keep us awake and make us fall asleep. But what actually is comprised of the sleep cycle? Well, our sleep cycle is comprised of periods of light and deep sleep. Now, each of these sleep cycles typically lasts around 90 minutes. Within these cycles, there are periods of non-repetitive eye movement periods, which essentially makes us go from light to deep sleep. Then we have periods of repetitive eye movement sleep, which is where our brains become more active, and we may get dreams at this point. And did you know, fun fact, that our arms and our legs are temporarily paralyzed during this REM sleep? And that's because we don't want to be acting out our dreams. Imagine that. Food for thought right there. And so these cycles last around 90 minutes each time. And so that helps us make us feel really nice and refreshed when we do wake up in the morning. Where's the water? Now, as general practitioners, when we are presented with somebody who cannot fall asleep, we tend to look at their sleep hygiene, which means any habits that are surrounding their sleep that may not be able to get them into that nice deep sleep, making them feel really refreshed in the morning. So in this part of the video, we're going to be talking about how to make your sleep better and how to improve for that perfect night's sleep. My first tip is to know your own body clock. Now, as you saw, it is really important to establish a routine, and certainly with our circadian rhythms, if you're falling asleep at night time, waking up in the daytime, this will help to establish a good, healthy sleep hygiene pattern. Of course, if you're working night shifts, this could be slightly different for you, and you may have to reverse your sleep cycle. But certainly if you are able to fall asleep at a particular time at night time, say 10 p.m. every night, and wake up in the morning at 9 a.m., then your body establishes a nice routine and you'll be able to stick with this. Now, some people do say, well, you know, doctor, I get really tired in the afternoon and I really feel like a nap. How will that affect my nighttime sleeping? Well, studies have shown that you can get away with an afternoon nap, provided it's not too long. And generally this would be about 30 to 60 minutes, because we know that any longer than this, you may end up in that nice deep sleep where it's really hard to wake up and you feel really unrefreshed, and that can have an impact on your sleep at nighttime. So if you do feel like you need to have that afternoon siesta, make sure it's a short one. Yes, that's very important. Now, of course, for patients who are suffering from insomnia, we definitely don't recommend afternoon naps because it can make it really hard to fall asleep at night time. For patients that are struggling to fall asleep, we do recommend having at least 3 days back to back where you're resetting your brain and your sleep cycle. So, for example, this could be on Monday, I'm going to sleep at 9 p.m. and I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. and vice versa for Tuesday and Wednesday. And we do know that generally speaking, it takes 3 days for our internal body clock to reset itself. My second tip is to know what you're consuming before you go to bed. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, typically, if you fancy that cigarette before you go to bed, at least half an hour before you go to bed, know that cigarettes contain nicotine, and nicotine makes our heart rates go up. And so it's really hard for us to come down into a more relaxed state. So it's a lot harder to fall asleep if you just had a cigarette. Conversely from this, if you do fancy a tipple before you go to bed, you like that glass of wine or that beer, yes, alcohol is a sedative. However, we do know that when you do have alcohol before you go to bed, your deep sleep is just not good enough. It disturbs that deep sleep. And so when you do wake up, you feel really unrefreshed and groggy. So although alcohol can help you get to sleep, it won't give you that nice deep sleep that you're looking for. And similarly, have a look at how much caffeine you're having before you go to bed as well. I have a lot of patients that present to me because they just can't fall asleep because they like their cup of tea or their cup of coffee about a couple of hours before they go to bed, and they wonder, why can't I get to sleep? Well, we do know again that caffeine, just like nicotine, can make your heart rate go up, and so it's harder for you to relax and come down to a nice nighttime sleeping if you have just had some caffeine. And so generally what we tend to recommend is to avoid any caffeinated drinks at least 4 hours before you intend to go to sleep. This will ensure that your brain goes into a nice resting state and you'll be able to fall asleep. But if you really need a cup of tea, why not switch it up for a herbal cup of tea, such as chamomile, for example, because that will help just to keep you nice and relaxed and help you fall asleep. It's too hot in here. Australian summer. My next tip for you guys is to have a look at your own sleeping environment. Ask yourself, is my room warm enough? Is it warm enough to help me to fall asleep? Is my bed comfortable? Are my pillows too hard or are they too soft? Is my room dark enough? Can I actually fall asleep in this bedroom? Am I surrounding myself with lots of electronic devices like my laptop or my mobile phone? Because let's face it, if you are checking your mobile phones or your emails before you go to sleep, surely your brain will be too active and it'll be really hard to come down and fall asleep. So instead, what we recommend as doctors is to keep all of your mobile phones, your televisions, out of the front door, because essentially there is no room for it in the bedroom. Because let's face it, if you're introducing movies into the bedroom or you're checking your emails in the bedroom, your brain will then start to associate the bedroom with activity. And so it'll be a lot harder for it to switch off and fall asleep if you are checking those emails at 2 a.m. in the morning. Oh, I wish my boss would stop sending me emails. So aside from looking at all the things you can be trying before you fall asleep, how about let's look at the things you can do to help you try to fall asleep. Now, generally speaking, we do know that relaxation, mindfulness, and meditation can really help to calm your mind and to calm any anxiety that you may be experiencing, and thus help you to fall asleep. Now, in saying this, if you are troubled with anxiety or low mood, then really the most important thing for you guys out there is to seek some medical help, because it may be that you need some psychological therapies where you can address your sleep issues or your anxiety issues, and that will then in turn help you to fall asleep so that your mind isn't racing before you go to bed. And going on from there, you may want to try a little bit of exercise. Now, this isn't necessarily running a marathon or doing some CrossFit training before you go to bed, because certainly we want you to keep your heart rate nice and low. We don't want it to go up really high, because similarly to caffeine and nicotine, it can be really hard to come down. So something like walking around the block or doing some gentle stretching exercises can certainly help to get your mind at ease and help you to fall asleep. Or failing that, you might want to try having a nice, long, warm, relaxing bath, because let's face it, who wouldn't want to do that? Now, of course, if you are still struggling despite all of the above tips and tricks to fall asleep, it is really important for you to go and speak to your own medical doctor. Your doctor may choose to perform an examination or perhaps do some assessments as well to find out what is the underlying cause of your difficulty sleeping. In some situations, your doctor may prescribe you with some medication to aid you to sleep. However, I must give a big word of warning about this, because medication generally tends to be quite addictive in nature, and addiction is not good in the medical world, even in the life world either. Some of these medications that the doctors do prescribe you, they usually will do it for a short period of time only and monitor you very, very closely, because the worst thing we want you to do is become reliant on these medications that you have to use them every single day, day in and day out, and coming off them can be a real nightmare, not to mention all of the other side effects are associated with them. So if your doctor does prescribe this to you, use it very cautiously on the advice of your doctor and try to minimize the duration of time that you'll be using them. I missed it. Well, as always, I hope you guys have found this video useful. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to drop me a line in the comment section below. But for now, take care and stay healthy.